Hi everyone, I want to talk about aging today. Imagine you are walking along a plane when you come across a wall. The wall goes up forever, to the left forever, to the right forever. What's this wall? This wall is death. Here's my presentation structure. I will talk about what's aging, why we age, and how we age or and against aging. The terms for the first 3 billion years, living things have been single-celled organisms. It wasn't until 500 million years ago that multicellular life became active. For early single-celled organisms, it was demitotic, in which genetic material was copied and then split into pieces. So, for a single-celled organism under ideal environmental conditions, a single-celled organism that splits in two has two new identical cells. Such creatures have no concept of lifespan. When a cell divides, it forms a new membrane in the middle, and experiments have found that when it divides again, rubbish moves towards the old membrane. The cells on this side of the new membrane are new. They seem to separate the old from the new and then define the parent and the offspring. Aging and death occur to take waste away from the population. Evolution logic is not to protect the individual, but to protect the genetic information. As long as the characteristic associated with it follows the evolutionary survival logic, the gene will be inherited and promoted by the population, even if that characteristic is aging and death. If an organism is immortal in the form of binary division, then environmental damage continues to accumulate throughout the population of a gene over time. The environment ends up killing the whole population. Natural selection then screens out the right genes to stabilize the direction of replication. Imagine two organisms. One organism is born with an inherited disease versus brand new organism. Which one is more competitive? That's why single-celled organisms that can live forever are at the bottom of the food chain. The population is completely surprised by a food chain full of predators. As organisms evolve towards multicellular scale, things get complicated. In multicellular organisms, only the germ cells are responsible for reproduction, known as meiosis. The rest of the cells protect the reproductive process, and large multicellular organisms reproduce much more slowly than single-celled organisms, which divide every 10 minutes. Cells need to stay healthy until they give birth. However, environmental damage is not biased by slow reproduction, so genetic mutations and natural selection could lead to another evolutionary direction: self-repair. As the graph shows, the self-repair mechanism is like our cells repair machinery kicks into full gear long before we are born. replacing spoiled proteins, repairing DNA broken by ultraviolet rays, stitching up damaged cell membranes until fertile age. The cell's self-repair mechanism is no longer working at full capacity. The trash can theory of aging is gaining ground. The removal of injured individuals from the population, essentially the elimination of those reproductive cells that are still replicating, and the reduced repair capacity is part of why we age and die along with the maternal damage trash can theory. But if a body cell can repair itself, why use the mother as a trash can to age? It takes care of its own garbage, and we really don't want to grow old and die. Can cells keep repairing themselves so we can live forever? We need to see how the repair mechanism works first. This is a single-celled organism at most, analogous to today's microbes. So, and someone might ask, can these multicellular organisms be traced in this way? Multicellular organisms also evolved from single-cellular organisms. The underlying logic is that it's hard to preserve DNA at the physical level for long, that environmental damage is inevitable. But it's easier to preserve the genetic information it contains, create new carriers to inherit genetic information, carrier generation after generation. The information is relatively stable preservation. As long as the genetic information in DNA is preserved, life will always exist. Individuals suitable for inheritance, preserving and transmission of preservation and transmission of genetic information will be left behind by the environment. Repairing and maintaining old individual functions requires more energy. Someone might ask, is aging caused by the accumulation of DNA replication errors in the body? While the weak health of Dolly, the cloned sheep, is also interpreted as premature aging, with the wrong DNA already accumulated in the nucleus taken out when Dolly was cloned. But many years later, the next generation of sheep cloned from the nucleus of Dolly, the clone turned out to be healthy. After gene sequencing technology matured, scientists sequenced the genes of a large number of older people and found no changes in the sequence compared to when they were younger. So what happens at the cellular level? Epigenetic disorder, like the conflict between immunity and replication, obtaining nutrients and producing energy, cell self-growth and functioning, specifically when a bacterium's DNA is broken by ultraviolet light. Repair proteins in the body are badly needed to repair it, but another irresistible act of the bacteria is disrupting the process. When the proteins involved begin to repair at the site of the DNA damage, helicase and DNA replicase also move to the site of the damage, and several proteins get stuck, often with high reproductive priority, so the repair process is interrupted. At this point, the duplicated DNA is a fragment of broken DNA, resulting in the two cells after the division of the gene cannot be expressed properly. The bacteria died then. Reproduction and survival are at odds with each other, and the conflict leads to death, and death means selection. And the bacteria that actively stop replicating win out. Shutting down reproduction also requires specific genes to express proteins that block the process. But a gene like this can't always express, or the bacterium will be extinct. And it should be expressed only when the DNA is broken and silenced the rest of the time. Repair protein binds to genes that inhibit reproduction when no damage is done to stop transcription. Protein in a chain reaction breaks from repressed gene to repair DNA. That's when genes that inhibit replication are expressed, producing proteins that block the DNA from replicating and allowing it to reproduce. It then comes back and presses down on repressed gene and stops it. Healthy cells can reproduce again. This is a complete life cycle. The problem is that this mechanism is not entirely reliable, and the repair proteins that go out to repair DNA can get lost in the maze of cells. Especially as the damage increases, the busy repair protein may not return to its inhibitory role in normal times. And as you do that more and more, what happens is that the silenced gene keeps being expressed. The silenced gene keeps being expressed. The cells are deranged and can't function properly. NAD is easy to combine with hydrogen to form NADH, and the reaction is reversible. So what NAD does is it delivers hydrogen ions, protons, to all kinds of reactions in the cell. And by doing so, it can support all kinds of reactions in the cell. It metabolizes, builds new cells, and sends signals within cells, between organelles, and it's necessary for mitochondria to convert food into energy. What's more, it's the fuel for all sorts of repair proteins. More NAD allows various repair proteins to complete repair tasks more quickly and return to their original jobs more easily. The repair protein is required to repair the damage and return to its original position by the chemical reaction of NAD hydrogen and NAD support function. When necrosis occurs in the body, the cells in question release pheromones that invite the immune cells to engulf themselves. And the pheromones that invite the immune cells are also picked up by the NAD factories in every cell around them. And this signal is a signal to reduce the production of NAD. The logic behind this is that there are more dead cells due to an uncontrolled environment, which means the body may have to expend more energy to repair itself. He may then cannibalize the survival resources of more descendants, while the immune system is struggling to deal with dead cells. The body's self-destructive system gradually reduces NAD production. This self-destruct system may also be influenced by age-related factors marked by intracellular methylation. Downregulation of NAD leads to increased cell damage and NAD consumption, which further limits the function of NAD, a vicious cycle. But we have three methods against aging. First, keep healthy lifestyle. Have healthy diet, no trans fat. Second, properly reduce caloric intake. Don't eat too full. Third, taking medicines. Note that some may have side effects. Lastly, I'd like the audience to string those terms together into sentences to summarize the presentation today. That aging exists in prokaryotic cells. Yes and no. It's yes because the prokaryotic cells could be classified as the parent cell and the daughter cell, or the old cell and the new cell. Formerly mentioned, the the separation of the cell membrane is selective. So the old cells will age with more waste, and the new cell will live to pass on the genetic information. It's not because the prokaryotic cells as a whole population or species does not have the concept of aging and death. How does repair protein work? Read it to yourself. Why does aging exist? What's something you can do against aging? Just mentioned. Do you like aging? Why or why not? Yeah. And write us short quotes. And thanks for listening to my presentation.